address your questions to a specific person on the panel. That'll make it nice and perfect. They'll have a moment to speak. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our panel for the day. First off, I'd like to introduce executive producer Lisa Henson. International superstar and the star of our show, Mr. Taron Egerton. And our director extraordinaire, Mr. Leterrier. Wonderful. All right. So who's got a question?
So my name is Jay. I was wondering, this is for Mr. Egerton. I hope I said that correctly. So what was your knowledge of this series before you came onto this, and how did you prepare for your character?
It's Egerton, you and the rest of the world. It's all good, man, don't worry about it. I watched the film originally, I think probably when I was around 6 or 7. My dad showed it to me, and I just thought it was completely enchanting. I found it quite scary, but in that kind of very exciting way. I'm a horror fan. I mean, Dark Crystal's nowhere near a horror movie, but you know, there's something about that thrill, that slight spiciness that I quite like. And so, around 18 months ago, when I got a call about this, I basically bit Louis' hand off. I really thought it was so exciting to be involved with something that I was so enamored of as a kid, and especially given how faithful the means of telling the story has been and the techniques used to tell the story. It's very faithful and evocative of the original movie. So yeah, I'm just thrilled to be here.
Hi, this is for Taron. Noting your success in Rocket Man with vocals, are we going to get an opportunity to hear you sing in character this time?
In the Dark Crystal?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's contractual. Taron will not sign on to a movie.
I also won't do a press conference unless I'm allowed to sing as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
everyone just settle in.
Just settle in.
We'll get
the last 30 minutes.
Yeah, the last 30 minutes, last hour. The concert will conclude about 6:30 p.m. So I hope you don't have any plans for the afternoon. Right. Yeah, thank you.
In the lovely dark crystal shade of hair.
Oh yeah.
This is for Ms. Henson. So telling ancient prequels like this can be a challenge because we already know how it ends. So how do you ensure there's hope or resistance when these seem like they lose?
You know what? We don't really expect the audience to be thinking about that when they're watching the series, and it's actually kind of a poetic ending. You know, that because everything's going to change. What's going to happen to us? You know, centuries from now, we don't know. We just kind of have to live our daily lives and win the daily battle. So, we think this is a really hopeful and inspiring story about heroes who, when faced with a really scary and mysterious threat, which is what the Skeksis are doing to them and threatening their very life essence, they manage to pull together and fight as a team. And you kind of don't expect Gelfling, if you know the original film, you don't expect Gelfling to have that kind of gumption, and they don't even know that they have a fight in them, but they do, and we learn that they do in the series.
I think if I can add to that as well, I think that the original movie, for anyone who's a fan of it and fell in love with it, I do think melancholy is an intrinsic part of it. That's part of the charm of it and the love of it, and so given the fact that Louis and Lisa and the whole team have set about making this story very much in the spirit of the original, there is an element of melancholy to it, and I think that's part of its charm. It's called the Dark Crystal, isn't it?
That's what our writers.
It's not the sound of music.
Yeah, one of our the writers' room mantra. They said, "Well, it's not the light crystal."
Exactly.
Yeah, the light crystal.
Matt?
Yes. Hey, this is for what's your name again?
Lisa.
Huh?
Lisa.
Oh, this is for you and you actually.
Louis.
And when you're creating something based on sort of a beloved cult classic, what's your thought processes in terms of how much of that original thing you keep versus jettisoning and coming up with something new and fresh? How difficult is that? And can you talk a little bit about your thought processes when creating something?
I could just speak a bit to the development side of it, because we've been at the Henson Company developing sequels, prequels, graphic novels, YA books, all sorts of content around the Dark Crystal, because we believe the world that was in the original movie was so convincing. We felt it had a past, a present, and a future, and that we could explore it. You know, in what you're saying, there are some projects that are like reboots. This is not a reboot. You know, this is a prequel, and it's meant to lead seamlessly into the film. So we were very conscious of anything that was established in the film, that we have to be able to get there eventually, you know, in our storytelling.
And on top of that, after the film, it's been quite a long time, 37 years since the movie came out, the Henson Company developed myth stories, backstories, future stories, so the movie is just the center of a very long story. So we had all that stuff to, take in, digest, make our own story, but also respect those canons, break from those canons, just have fun, have fun with it, and just make it our own. But the show itself, there's a lot of fans, a lot of you guys know the original movie, but there are more people that don't know the Dark Crystal, and that's who we need to, bring into our story and say, yeah, sure, there's eventually when you get to the 10 hours, you can watch as a, dessert the final movie, the movie, but just it starts in the beginning, the why, what happens to these people and what tips the world over. That's really what this show is about.
Hi, this is Mark Walters.
Hey.
It sort of plays off of what you were just talking about. Approaching this from a visual perspective, was there one particular aspect visually from the original that you wanted to maybe try to capture and bring to it? And then what was the most important thing that you wanted to bring to it that was new and different?
It's a good question. The movie, it was one of these movies that I realized actually, thinking about this now, that in the 80s, every movie that came out was important. There was a lot of movies that thematically, visually, but also in terms of filmmaking were important. They were sort of bringing cinema forward and taking it into a direction it's never gone before. The Dark Crystal was really one of these movies. On top of the really different story. I mean, as we all know, you guys possibly know, the original movie was not shot in English or in human language. It was shot in Skeksis, and yes, the Gelflings spoke English, but Jim Henson wanted to create really an alien experience. And then eventually, they were kind and said, okay, maybe we need those Skeksis to speak English. So this movie was the first one that, listen, I started making short movies when I was 8. This movie was very important for me. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, well, how did they do this? I understood how to move cameras and do stuff like that. So when it came to, when I was lucky enough to meet with Lisa Henson and, beg her to do something with the Dark Crystal, I said, let's re-explore the world the same way, just reintroduce an audience to the wonderful world that Jim Henson, Frank Oz, Brian Froud, who's the designer, created. That was my approach. Now, technology has evolved. CG is the norm now. There's a wonderful obsolescence about about puppetry that I wanted to keep in the center and really put on the pedestal for this show. But we enhanced everything, not everything, but the world is bigger thanks to CG. Everything you see is real, but we enhanced it here and there. We shot real locations, but then we put 3 suns in the sky, changed the mountains, did this, changed the color of the rivers and everything. The puppets, some of them couldn't blink, so we helped the blinking, stuff like that, but there's no, everything is CG. There's more puppeteering, there's more captured on camera than on any movie I've ever done. Really, literally anything. So that was our goal. Our goal every morning was to say, how do we make it how do we shoot it for real? How do we trick, with a camera move or an angle, we trick the audience's eye to think that this was real. It's a puppet, no leg, really this, and me with a camera on top, framing so we don't see the stuff. But ultimately, you look at a regular movie, you don't see legs for a lot of the time. So anyways, you'll see the stuff, you'll see how we managed it, but I must say, like 85, 90% is real.
So, Taron, how do you prepare for a role like that where you have to come into this world?
I mean, I revisited the original film, and I think it's largely that, I mean, be careful what you say, but, actors love to talk about their process, don't they? And, all the months of work that go in before, and actually, I think the work happens in the moment and on the set. It's a negotiation with your director, and it's about being alive and available and receptive and reactive. And you figure it out with the other people involved in the creative process. I'd love to say I lived as a gelfling for 6 months, but I didn't. But it was a great process working with Louis and finding the voice of the character and the balance of him being young and youthful and boyish, but also someone who ends up being someone more mature and a leader. That was kind of where most of our conversations happened. But it's a very, very physical role. It was not. It wasn't. No, it really is. It wasn't like. It was something that demanded a lot of energy in the booth because it's a real action adventure.
There's so much action in the show. It's incredible. It's like so much action. It's one of those rare projects. You're being too humble because it's one of, as usual. It's.
Darling, I can be not humble if you want.
Trust me.
Give me an inch.
Your song, your singing will tell us that. It's one of those rare projects where there's nothing. In the morning, you arrive on set, everything has to be created, and there's and even like months before, we had nothing. We don't have a set because we cannot go and shoot in the forest. The forest doesn't exist. It's a world that we don't. So we have to create the forest. We have to build every leaf of grass is created. Every character, the actors, they were a foam resin, and then became an actor, all that stuff. Then eventually a puppeteer, and that's so important. The puppeteers bring so much to the characters. And I must say, really, Taron and the rest of the cast, but Taron, coming in and voicing the characters really defines what the show is. Everything before it's kind of like rough, and I get a sense. Really, I tell you, I'm speaking as a director now. I've got a vague idea. We all see that, from Lisa to Teddy. It's like we all see the show. We're like, okay, it can be this. Then Taron puts his stamp on it, and then we're like, that's the show. That really is the show. And we did a couple of passes. We're lucky to have Taron. He's so generous with us. He was with us for a year and a half. He was cast and shot the Rocket Man, from the time he started our production and then finished the show. So it really, we started it. We're like, let's adjust this, adjust that, and we arrived at the perfect result with him. Thanks to him, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Thank
you. So we've seen such a resurgence of everything, especially from the 80s now, like throughout pop culture and television and film. Did that kind of play into why now is like the perfect time to release this?
It's interesting that we have Ted Biaselli here because he's our sponsor at Netflix and made it all happen there. I think this particular big streaming show obviously couldn't happen until now. But I think Netflix has also kind of made they've staked a big claim in that particular area that you're talking about. At the same time, it just was a really brave move for Netflix to greenlight the show because it was, we had been talking about making either a sequel movie, which would have been of a certain scope, or an animated show that was a prequel show, and that would have been of a certain scope, and instead Netflix greenlit this premium television series that looks just like the movie, which is of a completely different scope than we ever even dreamed of doing. So, you know, we were just in heaven when they told us they were interested in doing that. So I think it's like timely, and it could be potentially generational that we're coming around to those titles, but you also have, this is kind of like a step beyond just nostalgic rebooting, I think.
I think equally, you know, with things, Stranger Things, J.J. Abrams revitalizing Star Wars in a way that's more evocative of the original productions than the prequels. You know, it feels like there's an appetite for products of this era. So we hope that some of those audiences will be drawn to our show too.
For me also, because we tried for a long time. I've been on board this project for 8-9 years, and we tried to put a movie together. We went to a few studios. There were a lot of, not passes, but people were like, well, okay, puppets, we don't get it. I mean, it's not so much the 80s thing, it's that this project is so this movie was so different when it came out, and remained so different, and, you know, it's cult, you know, it's you know, the fans of the show, of the movie are, you know, obsessed with it and know all the details about it and everything, just because because it's different. And Netflix, they didn't pick this, well, yes, another franchise from the 80s. It's not a franchise. It was this one movie that, you know, was just so strange. They just picked it. I mean, Teddy is the one that championed it. And no, but stay here. I mean, you know, Teddy, Carolina, Cindy Holland. He's the person that said, you know, we were ready to go like, okay, we'll compromise. Maybe we'll go see. And she's like, no, do it with puppets. Do it the right way. You know, all these guys. And it's Netflix does things. No, but it's true. But really, it's pretty. Netflix, I must say, like we could not have done it in a better way. And we did it, you know, then we did it with Netflix. So thank you, Teddy Buscelli. Thank you, everyone.
We're definitely getting re-employed, Louis.
I got my 20 bucks.
Speaking about the level of physical production that you just mentioned being about 90%, I'm just wondering if that translated at all either to actors working as a group or as pairs in the booth, or if any of the actors spent any time on set watching you create the physical world.
Just this guy.
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just, you know, I don't know, again, like to say, I really was a fan.
Yep.
And, you know, when I got the very generous offer from these guys to come and be a part of the project, you know, I said, yeah, I'd love to, but I'd really love to come and see you guys working on set. It's just, you know, as an actor, it's always fascinating and exciting when you get to be involved in something that's different or that you haven't been involved with before, whether that be from a character perspective or something like this, you know, where it's just, there's nothing else out there like this. So it was really interesting for me to go and see what they were doing. I find the craft fascinating, both from a kind of production perspective and the making of these puppets, right through to, you know, the way it's shot and put together. So that was very important to me. In terms of recording together, it's such a rarity that I personally have never done it. I think there are times where it's merited. So I think, you know, Seth Rogen and Billy, it's Eichner you pronounce his name, you know, working together, that makes total sense for the Timon and Pumbaa thing, but by and large, you know, something like this, it's so many different crafts coming together at different times. It's so compartmentalized.
You cannot improv. That's the one thing. That's the one thing. Like the actors will work together for animation because they can improv. Then they build the animation based on that improv and everything. Here, the problem is like we already shot it. That's very hard for Taron. He has to match the mouth flaps, the energy, the emotion. We go one night at a time. He has to focus on it. It's a very hard thing. We tried a couple of times. You know, there's a couple of characters. And we were like, nah, it doesn't work. Let's just go one at a, you know, which make that for incredible. I mean, you know, when I was shot, when we were done shooting the movie, I was like, oh, we're done. No, I had like, you know, 10,000 hours of voice recording afterwards to do, like 10,000. It's a lot of shooting. So yeah, no. So you came on set, Simon Pegg came on set. They saw, you know, it's just like people that, you know, you guys were fans. You know, you came as fans just to see us shoot. It was fun to have people.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. The puppets are incredibly fragile, And most of them are in museums. They're at the Museum of the Moving Image in New York and the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta. But we had a few that were not yet restored that were at our creature shop. And in the process of building new characters, our shop actually started by copying the old ones because it kind of got them going, and then they took off from there into building the new characters. So yeah, it was really interesting to be able to access the old characters. And I've been wanting to make, you know, either a sequel or a prequel to this for so long that when we closed our creature shop in London, which is where everything was stored, even though they were inclined to even get rid of, you know, certain, you know, like sort of the ephemera of a workshop, like things that wouldn't have to be kept. I wanted to keep everything to do with dark crystals because I thought, well, we're going to do something with dark crystals someday. And then we did, as another tie to the past, it's really important that we had Brian Froud, who was the original designer. He came back, he designed every character, every costume, and his family, Wendy, Meidner Froud, and Toby Froud, the baby from Labyrinth, is now full-grown person who is our design supervisor. So, you know, we have the Froud DNA from the original film. You know, that is our design team for the show.
I nearly made a really bad joke about him reminding me of the babe.
Oh, there you go.
But I resisted you.
So the word resist and resistance has kind of taken on a new meaning probably in the past few years. Do you feel any responsibility, given what's going on and given the subject matter, to reflect certain ideas or to live up to the name of Age of Resistance?
I mean, I think there's still validity in escapism that doesn't have massive political statements and comment, right? You know, it's a fantasy show. It's a family show. It's about being lost in wonder and adventure, I think, rather than. That's my take on it. Maybe you feel something.
It's so
different.
wrong. This movie. It's completely political. It's about puppets. Puppets, politics, man, very important. No, the stakes are real. You know, we know the outcome from the movie. The stakes are real. This world was important for us. We were able to, you know, bring it forward. And you'll see that it is as fun as it is dramatic. It is as, you know, small and human as it is heroic and big. You see, it's like, and I think that's what Resistance is. It's about humans coming together, or puppets, or characters, or beings coming together and fighting for what they believe is right. And this was important for our writers, Jeff Addis and Will Matthews, and this was important for us, Lisa, right? I think it's a family show. You will watch it with your kids, hopefully. These kids will get to grow up and make important decisions for this world. Better teach them the right things early on and show them the right things. I think the Henson company has done that for a long, long time. And we just, I could not pick up the flambeau and be like, this is just a joke and everybody will get killed. No, I think there's a little bit of it. I mean, Taron's, you're right, it's puppets, they have big ears. Not everything is super serious, but at the same time,
But we do have amazing villains, and people may read into the villains of their own lives, or they may read into it historical villains. I think more often we talked about the ancient Romans, as conquerors who were kind of appropriated different lands that they settled in. Those were more of our references for the villains. But they're delicious villains. They're great, and they're very horrible and very scary. We actually have some exceptionally scary scenes in the show. But they're also funny, and we cast at least 4 of the Skeksis are comedians, because we wanted to make sure we get that heightened, deliciousness from our villains.
Okay, this is Jay again. So this is for all three, for Lisa, Taron, and what was your name again?
Louis.
Louis. So for Louis and Lisa, who that became a part of this cast were you kind of most surprised to get? And Taron, with this being such a big all-star cast, was there anyone you were almost intimidated to work with, or like, oh man, I get to work with this person, like either intimidated or like just like in shock you got to work with them?
Yeah, Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. Well, everyone. I mean, it's for a director. It really is a dream come true. It's a dream of a cast. Everyone that signed on was like, really? We were literally asking people. I was now it's like it's too crazy. I'm right, Teddy. We're like, let's ask this person. It's crazy. Oh, they said yes. Up to the very and the last moment, we had something to do. Like, we had a part. It's an interesting part, and we're like, let's just ask Sigourney Weaver, and then she said yes. It's like everyone.
You're
like
doing yourself a disservice there, because Louis is a really great film director.
Oh, thank you.
And someone that would be exciting to work with on any level. When you couple that with the intrigue and the uniqueness of this project, I think you are doing yourself a disservice there. But thank
you. No, but it's also it's not the most glamorous of acting jobs. You just meet me in a sub-basement in London, and I'm like, say those words. Oh no! You said it, you were too slow. You're too fast. But it's in a sense it's pure acting. So all these people sign on. Yes, thank you so much for saying that. To work, but not to work with me, but to work because they love. It's really thanks to Jim Henson and the power of the original movie. They're like, you said yeah. I mean, your agent didn't finish saying, asking you if you were in it, you wanted to be part of it, that you'd said yes already.
I said yes before I got asked to be in it. I know, clairvoyance. Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought? It's like, I think they're doing this. No, and then a lot of people, it was the same idea, but it was hard. It was a lot of work for a lot of these people. Like Taron was saying, I joke, but it's true. Like sometimes people were like almost passing out because they're like 15-minute action scenes where you like have to huff and puff and hit everything, and then normally on a set on a movie you do one take and it's like 30 seconds. Here it's like go for it. We shot the thing, so we might as well just go for it. And some of them were like, woo,
we can never forget the incredible hard work of the puppeteers.
Yeah.
We had 12 main puppeteers on the show who did all main characters, and it is extreme physicality. It's just funny when you're talking about physicality. I'm like, oh, how the puppeteers suffered. It's such hard work, but of course, for a puppeteer, and we had in the supporting roles, we probably had pretty much every working puppeteer in England on the show at one point or another. And for a puppeteer to be able to be on the Dark Crystal is a crowning achievement. So they, their work is incredibly delicate. So it's hard to explain the puppeteering. I feel like you just have to see it and see the nuance and the delicacy that they brought to what the
character they bring
it's
as well.
It's really incredible. It's just hard to explain it. That's why I just feel like watch it and see it.
From an acting perspective, it's really quite incredible watching them do their thing and the individual persona and character they bring to their craft. It really is, it's 80% of the performance. I come in and put the cherry on the cake, but it's they do all the hard work. Really.
Do two more questions. Taron, what do you think about being an action figure?
Well, I think enough about it to Instagram it. Amazing. I am from, without wishing to romanticize my career too much, I'm from a rural Welsh town, from a family, that never earned more than, 25 grand a year, and now I have an action figure. It's amazing. Just touch wood, everyone wish me luck, let's hope it doesn't all fall apart. It's great, I love it, love it, love it, love it.
What came first, the character design or the casting?
Character design.
Character design.
Character
yeah,
design.
so all the characters were designed, they were built even before we cast puppeteers into them. And then last, really, we cast the voices. And the design of these characters kind of drives everything because, we have to create, as Louis said, you have to create every cast member of the show. So the characters were built in Burbank at the Creature Shop, and then we continued building costumes and some more characters, supporting characters in London once we moved there.
Everything is done by hand. I mean, it's, we're not talking months, we're talking years. Prepping, looking at the design, deciding on something. It's not like, like when you do a regular movie, you can decide you don't want to do this, Sonic the Hedgehog, back up and do another design. Did I say something? That's really, you don't want to do that, but you can do that. We committed to a design years in advance. I mean, that's also, how are these guys? I want to say, because, no, but really, because they were like, yes, let's go for it. You don't know, you're giving millions of dollars to people who say, yeah, I can do it. It's like a blind act. They're insane just to give, they trusted us. It's puppet. It could look horrible. So we do this, we perfect the stuff, we see sculpt, sometimes it works, most times it works, sometimes it doesn't work, we do hair, we do this, and eventually he becomes your lead actor, and there's not a single shot where I don't have a puppet in my frame. So I cannot back up and say, no, we did it wrong, let's change everything. We can't. It's all puppets. So it takes a long time. Casting comes afterwards, but then that's the same thing. Like, there's no voice where we're like, oh no, he sounds too squeaky. We were like, no, it's perfect. You have to aim perfectly every time, and it's very, very scary. But it's one of those. We're lucky to be on the edge of this razor for like years and just be like, okay, now we're done. Yeah, we finished it. It was really.
While we're just talking about the puppet building, it is just fun when you watch the show and see the amount of handcraft that's on screen, because we're used to seeing, Pixar does a lot of crafting of the models in their show, but we're actually having like milliners, wig makers, people hand punching hair into the creatures, just extraordinary handwork. And so it's like a maker spectacular,
Yeah. So it's 10 episodes, and then there's I can tell it? There's a document. The 11th episode is a documentary, the journey, because it's as great. It's about all these people, these hundreds, maybe thousands of people, that were involved in punching, designing the stuff. You, Taron, are amazing, talking about the world and how we're creating it. This documentary is wonderful. It's truly emotional. It's like you will fall in love with movie making watching this thing. I think this documentary, if I were my 8-year-old self watching this documentary, was like, that's what I want to do. I just want to do puppets and do these shows for it. This documentary is wonderful.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No, that's really fun.
Thanks, guys.
This
Bye-bye.
one?
Thank you.
Bye.
This one's
This way. Grab it.
Excuse me.